Right, all right. I think we can start. I think we can start. Let me just share my screen so that we can start. But in the meantime, I'm going to be telling you about this workshop, and then I'll be telling you about UX chefs, and I'll be telling you about myself, and then we shall introduce ourselves, and then um, I'll be taking you through the agenda, and then we shall start, and then we shall see how this actually uh, you know, concludes. But feel free to ask any question in regards to what you want, in regards to what you've misunderstood, in regards to wanting any clarification here and there. Feel free to jump in anytime so that you can get answered here and there. So feel free to actually join in at any time and discuss. Just to kick in, the UX Chefs weekly workshop, it's just sort of like workshop that involves one, knowledge sharing, and then skill sharing, and then three, it involves people getting to ask questions about user experience design together with other questions in regards to design in general, so that they can be answered, and then we can see how to collaborate here and there, because I believe people usually work out there, but when they have questions in regards to the type of work they're doing, and then those questions will usually go unanswered here and there. So that is why this workshop is there. UX Chefs is just it's just a group of creatives. It's just a group of creatives that come together usually to solve user experience design business related problems. We do have creatives like graphic designers. We have guys that do UI design, web design, uh, product design. We also have some software engineers that do sort of like engineering work. So we make sure that we give you the best digital user experiences once you come and approach us with any problem in regards to business design. So that is why we exist. But we realize that there's a gap in regards to sort of like what people actually know about user experience. So we realize that it might be easy to sell user experience services here and there, but it is not good to actually sell something when the people you're selling to might be aware of what user experience design is, but they might be wanting to know more about it, so that so that you can get them to buy in into what you're actually selling to them. So that is why we actually created sort of like these workshops, so that we can always come up with ways to sort of like give you this information in regards to how you can actually start thinking UX, and how you can start thinking of your users as you're designing, because it is very easy for someone to start designing, like to throw in rectangles here and there, Illustrator, Photoshop, these tools, plus other super simple tools here and there that you've used, Sketch, Blender, be it any tool. It is very easy to actually just kick in and start designing. But it is also very tricky if at all you're not considering the kind of people that are going to actually use what you're designing. So that is why we, as the UX chefs, we come up with these workshops to sort of like share the information we always share throughout the week, so that we can go through it and get to learn from each other, and then get to answer as many questions as we can. So this is actually our third weekly workshop. We've had two previous weekly workshops. I'll be sharing the links so that you can actually go and check them out and see if at all you can actually pick something here and there. So just stay around. I'm going to be taking you through our weekly buffet. So at UX Chefs, we create informative posts, just like I told you that it's better actually, first of all, create awareness. within the people that you expect to sort of like, be the ones to, push this field forward, especially in Uganda, because if you realize that we don't have like so many UX practitioners here in Uganda. Maybe in Kenya we do have some, but here in Uganda, there's quite a number of them. Some of them might be practicing, but when they're not aware of the kind of work they're doing, or they might be doing it out of, not critically thinking of what they're actually doing, or referencing it to somewhere, or getting to know the best practices, standards, and how the field has actually evolved. So that is why we're here, and we believe to be the pioneers of UX design in Uganda. So we actually believe that we shall be pioneering this field for quite some time, and very soon we shall be offering courses here and there. We have a couple of ways we're actually providing information that you can actually follow up, as I'll be showing you through our hashtags. So just stay around so that we can finally start. I just want to share my screen. I just finishing up with the introductions of UX chiefs, and then also trying to introduce our weekly buffet. So our weekly buffet is actually a collection of information that we put together throughout the week through the hashtags that, just like I'm going to be showing you. So we have like some hashtags that we use, and then we create information around those hashtags. And then what happens is at the end of the week, for example, today, Saturday, we sort of like gather that information and then put it together, and then we create what they call the UX Chiefs buffet, and then it's through that buffet that we give you all the information that you require to sort of like, go out there and practice as, UX practitioner. So let's give me a minute, and then I'll share my screen, and then we shall, just start. So let me just share my screen. There you go. So just let me know if I told you about to see my screen, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, for me, I'm able to see.
All right. So I'm here in this tool called Figma. It's the one I use to sort of like create the presentations, put the information together so that we can always go through it. So I think let me just start with let me just put this aside. So let me just load up this screen. So I'm sure you're all sort of like familiar with this tool Figma. If at all you're not, then I'll be telling you a little bit about it. But regardless, let's just wait for this prototype to actually load. So I'm sort of like using prototypes to actually present, because I believe they're actually better than using Google Slides, because Google Slides are not they're not for us designers. They're for people that like secretaries, personal assistants. But for us designers, we always need to use Figma to do everything we want. When I talk about everything, recently, I think it was yesterday, I was actually able to edit an image in Figma. Although I can't show it to you, it's just like because I signed a non-disclosure agreement with the agency I'm working with. But I was able to actually edit an image in Figma, and it did require me like to actually do quite a lot of editing, just like you might do in sort of like Photoshop. But I was able to actually join some rectangles here and there, and then eventually I was actually able to come up with something better than what I had actually, come up with eventually. What happened is I had an image that it was for an individual that was holding money, but that money wasn't for the sort of like present for the country within this agency that I work for. So I had to change the money that this individual was holding. Just like you might download an image from Google for a person holding money, celebrating something, and then they're holding like money for a different currency. For example, dollars, euros. You know that money is always like popular, so it's always like everywhere. So that individual holding that money, So I had to like get the money for the country within which that agency is, and then I had to like fix that money, and then like block like the original money in the original pick, and then I had to like make sure that it has the money for that specific country. So you can imagine, like the things you can do with Figma. They're endless. Just like I've told you, I do my presentations like in Figma. I always do my sort of like my work that I always sort of like present like throughout the week. Like the work that like the ideas that we always come around and talk about as UX chefs, always gather those ideas and then put them together, and then come up with a UX chefs weekly buffet. So that is the buffet I'm going to be taking you through. What you have to first of all get to know is UX in general. UX is all about trying to sort of like figure out what your users might want. That's the whole puzzle, and making sure that you give it to them in a seamless way. Like you don't have to tell them that, "Hey, man, I'm giving you this." You get that is poor user experience. Even if someone gives you something good, but then they first let you know that they're giving it to you, that is all called poor user experience. So I believe that user experience evolves around people, and you need to truly understand what people want, and then once you truly understand what people want, you can then devise means to come up with solutions that will always, work for them. So, as you're starting to think about user experience, always think about people. What do people want? How are they feeling? How do they react to this? Those are the questions that you should be asking yourself. And then once you actually figure that out, you can actually start designing in either Illustrator, Photoshop, any tool that you want, Figma, so that you can actually come up with a solution that will actually work for the end user. So, as UX chefs, that's what we believe, to be the final sort of like end goal of every sort of like user experience design or product design or even UI designer, because these days things are changing. Companies always want people that can actually think UX together with UI. So it's not all about making things good, shining. It is all about making sure that you produce something that is going to be usable. Someone doesn't have to overthink, and as you will sort of like realize, in our last buffet we talked about a book called "Don't Make Me Think" by Steve Krug, and even in this today's presentation, I'm going to be showing you the book of the week, so that you can actually go read it and then get to know about UX in general and what people want. Exactly, because you realize that UIs are everywhere these days. It is very easy to actually get a UI. You can just go to the Figma community and then get any UI you want, replicate it, and then it becomes just use it any way you want. But once it comes to making sure that users actually want something, you need to actually analyze and be like, oh, what could my users want? Or let me find out maybe what my users want, and then I can tailor this solution that I've gotten from the internet to my users, because people are different. People are different. You realize people are different. We are all different. Everyone on this call is different, and you realize that we are going to have different breakfast, lunch. We sleep in different beds, styled. We shower different sort of like shower gel. Some of us shower cold water, some warm, some like eating different types of food. Some hate it. Some different, some people do different things differently. Your role as a designer is to figure out the people I'm designing for, what exactly do they want, and once you figure that out, then you'll be able to actually create for them solutions that are really good. That is me. I hope you've actually read this introduction. I'm actually Rogers Mukaaya. I want to actually turn on my videos so that you can see me. You guys you don't have to turn on your videos unless you want. Once it's time to actually present. Sorry, introduce yourselves. But just for the record, I'm a product designer. I've actually done a couple of design work here and there. I've actually hustled in Kampala. I started my design career from around Kabalagala. There is that building called Tirupati Mazima Mall. There was a company called Humuza Innovation Hub. So that's where I did my internship when I was still studying at Makerere University. So I did my internship there. Then, like during some holiday, I actually went back and I told the guy, "Come on, can I work here? Because I need like some money to sort of like make ends meet." So the guy was like, "Okay, you can work here." Then, okay, things did go well in terms of payment and all of that, but I actually got the skill. I was actually able to do a couple of things when I was actually at a Homoza Innovation Hub. I was actually able to tutor. I was actually a tutor, so I was a tutor for design, especially design fundamentals in regards to design principles, teaching people how to use Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, sort of like a basic design, but still using like the industry standard tools because, as you know, Adobe is the leading producer of the industrial sort of like design tools, the tools that are used in industrial design, especially as it comes to graphic design, video editing, audio editing. So yeah, those guys are really good at producing such tools, and I was able to actually learn a couple of tools in the Adobe Creative sort of like suite. So I was able to actually teach here and there and make ends meet. And then from there, I was actually able to transition into digital marketing using Facebook, especially. And then that was actually under a company called Fav. And then that's when I actually picked an interest into UI design. And I later on worked for a company called BP Sheets as UI UX designer. And then later on transitioned into front-end development. And then later on became a product designer and still a product designer. So currently I work at a company called Impact Africa Network, where we sort of like build startups and then make people owners and creators of these startups, and then they sort of like make those startups real businesses. So that's where I am. I also work as a product designer at UX Chefs, and yeah, that is a little bit about me. So you guys can feel free to start sort of like introducing yourselves so that we can continue. We shall start with Steven. Steven, you can introduce yourself so that you can continue.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Good morning once again for the guys who have joined in. My name is Bitum Steven. I'm a front-end software engineer, and I'm also a teacher by profession, a software engineer, self-taught. Then a self-taught career that I hold right now is map design with GIS tools, ArcMap, and OpenStreetMap. I'm so excited to join this workshop. Actually, I thank you so much, you ex-chiefs, for bringing in this wonderful workshop. Then, my for lack of a better word, in my journey to software engineering, that is front end, it deals with more of what users always see and what they always get in touch to. My challenge I used to face with developing websites, basically about the design. I've been facing a lot of challenge. That's why I decided to actually take in a step to learn about the UX UI designs. That's why when I saw this opportunity, I decided to jump in and get some simple knowledge about UX and UI. Thank you so much. That's something brief about me.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I think, Enos, you can also introduce yourself so that you can start.
Yes, hello. I don't have good morning to you, to everyone. I don't have a lot to say. Uh, Me, I'm a software engineer. I started with back end, but I wanted to venture into front end, so I'm currently learning React and JavaScript. So I was also thinking that, okay, not thinking, but I know this would be very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and thank you so much for taking this opportunity to actually join. Right now, let's take this remaining time to sort of like go through the different hashtags that we use, and then after that, we shall join in for the second session, and then we shall go through the different information on those hashtags, and then we shall be able to actually conclude. So, in the meantime, I'm actually trying to put on my video, but I think it's actually taking years and years and years and years, but it will go on. Nonetheless, welcome to our UX workshop. I'm going to be taking you through our UX Chef's weekly buffet that we usually prepare every week, and then it consists of meals that have to do with the UX tunes, UX word, our articles, and then it's just a combination of that. So those are the meals, and then what happens is under the buffet, we have all these meals as I'll be showing you. So thank you so much for joining, and we hope that you will come again. So let's just head on. I've actually turned on my video. I hope you've actually seen me. Is it clear, Steven?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah, I'm not that handsome. But anyway, let's continue. Let's just continue. Let's continue. So I guess wants to actually go back. So I'm going to be taking you through the first and foremost, the sort of like the hashtags that we have under our UX Chefs weekly buffet. So I've actually taken you through. Let me just detach this. Just detach the slides. I'm misbehaving. Okay, I've actually taken you through, what our buffet is. So let me just take you through, our hashtags that we have, and then what happens is I'll be explaining to you the different information you have under these hashtags, and then you can actually follow up on these hashtags so that you can actually stay up to date on a daily basis. We post information. For example, on every Monday we post information that has to do with the UX tunes. Every Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday we post the UX tunes. The UX tunes, it's just a conversational way of sort of like producing information, but using cartoons. So we realized that it's actually better to learn through these cartoonish sort of like media, because first and foremost, they're entertaining. So someone might find them entertaining, and they're easy to consume, because at all you have a dialogue that is involving humans in terms of cartoons, then that dialogue shouldn't actually be very long. should involve very short sentences because that's how people actually communicate. So, and user experience is all about people. So we realized that it's better actually endow people through using things they can actually relate to, rather than giving someone a very long article about UX. We created the UX tones to serve as a conversational way to sort of like give you this information, but through dialogues and conversations. These conversations usually happen in offices, when you're at home, at the bar, at the restaurant, and anywhere you can actually talk about UX. And UX happens anywhere you are. You're always experiencing something because unless you were to go to the forest, Mabira, and you undress yourself and you don't go there with anything artificial, then it's all about nature to actually care for you. But once you come into contact with any artificial product, then you start sort of like thinking of the type of experience you're getting from it. So I know that's what we believe. UX evolves around people and it evolves around artificial products. And artificial products involve so many things, including the internet, together with the digital devices that we use. So on top of that, we also created the UX word. The UX word is just the user experience word of the day. So we do create that every sort of like Tuesday and Thursday. So every Tuesday and Thursday we create a sort of like a UX word. We actually pick a word from a list of 300 words. So we created a list of 300 words that describe what user experience is. That have because people have been describing user experience from before even Don Normans. I've been reading about designers before Don Norman. People have been sort of like describing what user experience is. So we created a list of 300 words that we use every Tuesday and Thursday. We pick a word, a different word, to sort of like describe what user experience is, and we write something about it so that people can actually get to know. Because I realized people actually just need a chance to get to know. Once you get to know, then you act. You can't act without knowing, or with you can't act out of out of nothing or with nothing. So you need that knowledge to sort of like give you a go ahead. So that's why we created these hashtags. And the UX Chefs Weekly Buffet is just a combination of all the information and the UX students, the UX word, and then an article if at all there is any. So that's all about these specific hashtags. So moving on to our next slide. I'll just go back here. So let me just play this slide, and then we shall be able to join in for our second session. So in our second session, I'm going to be taking you through first and foremost the UX board, and then I'll be taking you through the UX tunes, and then I'll be taking you through the different things. Hello, Kato. Hello. Kato, no, thanks for joining. I was just telling these individuals that we have that I'm going to be taking you through the UX word first and foremost, and then I'll be taking you through the UX tunes. Like in our second session, because our first session is about to end, we need to take a break. We need to take some water, and then we can actually join. But first and foremost, in our second session, I'm going to be taking you through the UX word. These will be the words I'm going to be taking you through. And these words explain what user experience is. Because as I told you, just like I told you that we oh that's okay. But guys, just prepare so you can join in for the second session. But just before we join in, just like I told you, user experience design is all about people, and you realize that even the words are about people. You cannot get like a word from that is used for a machine, and you use it to explain what user experience is. You cannot. I failed to actually get that word. So as you can see, these will be the words. The first word is going to be fields and then hands. I'm going to be showing you how do these words relate to what user experience design is in our next session. So I just request you guys to actually join in using the second link. If at all you don't have it, I can actually post it in the chat so that you can actually go with it. So that you can actually join directly through this specific link. So I've actually attached the link for the second session. So see you guys in the second session, and then you can actually continue. Right, guys. Thanks for joining in. Let me just share my screen, then you can just continue. So guys, thanks for joining for the second session. Just like I told you, I'm going to be breaking through this, and the first one is going to be fields. So let's just head right to this specific word. Just like I told you, these words usually come from a curated list. We created a list, and we're actually adding onto this list. There could be a billion words someone can actually use to actually explain what user experience is. So the word feels in this post right here, the word feels is it's sort of like trying to remind you of the kind of people you're actually designing for, because usually people design things without thinking about how someone actually feels. And I realized that software engineers, developers, programmers, for them, they believe that they cannot program feelings, that the type of the type of results that you come up with after you've actually developed a specific feature. For them, they believe, some of them believe that you cannot engineer feelings, like you cannot put feelings in the type of solutions you code. And I believe that that's very wrong, because as you actually come up with a solution, you're supposed to sort of like correlate with the type of design you're actually trying to develop. And then once you correlate with it, you sort of like try to pick up the kind of feeling someone would have while using it. And then you make sure, as you're engineering that specific feature, you sort of like, put in the required, first of all, states, the required feedback, and then, so that you also put in the required sort of like information that will not, obstruct away the value that someone actually wants. Because when you realize that some programmers, when they're coming up with some features, for them, they don't care, like the end result, how someone is going to feel while using it. Even if you give them a very good design that is engineerable, for them, they think, no, for as long as it works somehow. But you realize that things that work, yes, they work, but you realize that people usually interact with things that work, but then while interacting with them, they reach a point and maybe experience certain difficulties. For example, you might interact with a system and it cannot tell you the current state of that specific system. You cannot know, in terms of navigation, where are you? Once you get a problem, you cannot get an alert. The input boxes do not have the different states of you've forgotten password, wrong password. Like someone cannot tell. You just see maybe a message of system failure, system this. And all of those words do not really mean anything to a typical user, someone who has just come to solve a problem. So as engineers, as developers, I believe that we are also responsible for how a user feels. So this responsibility should filter down from the designer to the engineer to the marketing team to people that do public relations, that the people that do accounting. Everyone needs to actually get to know that a specific product needs to account for how someone is going to eventually feel. Because when you realize that when you think about it, I was actually reading somewhere just recently, and Disney in the 2000s, it came up with sort of like uh, an armband that you could actually wear, and it would actually automatically take you around their parks, help you buy things and all of that. So there was that introduction, and then eventually, it was a problem of people not actually realizing like the end goal of how people feel as a collection of a company. What I'm trying to drive it towards is this company came up with some new tech, but the people who were supposed to implement this tech were so passionate about it that it was going to help people navigate around Disney, and then it would help them feel better because people were waiting in queues, to buy tickets, to buy eats, to buy a lot of things, and it was so exhausting. But once you came with that armband, you could actually get the service delivered to you by someone who actually knows what you want. But the problem came in when the implementers had a vision, a very good vision, but then the people who are controlling those specific park stations, like the cinema halls, the swings, the circus, the people who are responsible for that logic did buy in like to the urban idea. So you realize that for them, they didn't have that sort of like imagination of how someone would feel while using this armband. So you realize that the idea failed at Disney. So the engineer responsible for that idea then sold it to a cruise sort of like ship, to a cruise business. This business for these cruise ships that take people around the world. Spending their money, and these cruise ships usually have casinos, swimming pools, all those nice things. And then what happened is this guy sold this idea to the company, and they bought it. And then what happened is they had to use that idea to sort of like make chips. So what happened is you just needed to sort of like get that chip, and then you bought the ship, and then what happens is you use that chip everywhere you go. You just get services customized to you. So what happens is this guy that was sort of like researching about this chip, and this guy from Disney to this cruising company, he was like, what happened at Disney that made this idea fail, and what happened here that made this idea actually work? And then it was like, what happened is everyone needed to buy into this idea that it is possible to provide customized services to make people feel better and then to make them return. So I believe that once you do not have a shared vision as a company to sort of like provide better user experiences, then you'll find out that how people feel, it won't be a shared vision. It might be a shared vision in the design team, but when people like maybe the engineering team, the sales team, people that do advertising, people that do marketing, people that do all these other things to make the business run, do not buy into this idea. So that is why it actually failed at Disney. So Disney actually, missed out on making people feel better so they can actually come back. So that is what I was actually trying to sort of like highlight out here using this word, the feels word. It is better to, remind yourself how people feel, because it is really crucial. You can actually reflect onto your own self. How do you feel while using something? Do you feel good? Do you feel bad? And you're always feeling. You're always feeling. You just need to realize that you're always feeling. You cannot run away from that. You're always feeling something. So that is what I was actually trying to bring out in this specific post. So always think about the things you're doing in terms of how will someone feel while using this specific thing that I'm doing, because we're always doing things to serve people. If it's not a product, you're doing a service. If it's not a service, you're doing a product. If it's not a product, you're either doing both. So you realize that you're serving people, and that is why we are literally here, in this world to serve. So as we are serving, you need to think about how people actually feel, and that is why user experience comes in to question how does the end user feel. So that is where user experience comes in, and I have this norm of always telling people that they need to think UX wise. You need to start thinking of the kind of experiences you're making. Question them. So that is what this web was all about. So let's just jump into our next word, which was hands. So for hands, I think let me just look it up here so that we can actually so for hands, you realize that products usually, I usually use my hands, let me say, but realize that hands, it's not that everyone has hands, by the way, if you realize, it's not that everyone has hands. So it is better for you to actually, come up with a way to sort of like always, like think of it in this way. Some people have hands and some people have, legs only. Some have hands and don't have eyes. Some have hands and don't have ears. Like there are so many disability sort of like issues. But realize that user experience design is here to sort of like question the kind of the kind of people you're actually designing for, because you realize that some people always have this assumption that they're always designing for the normal person, but you realize that not everyone is normal in this world. We have so many people with disabilities, and people with disabilities, you realize that they are the ones that have, let me say, money to sort of like push your business forward. So if at all you do not have an accountability for people who have disability, then you're going to find yourself sort of like failing to sort of like account for what people should actually be doing who do not have these body parts that you always thought about. So that is what I was actually trying to sort of like bring out in this specific post for hands. You always have to account for people who have disabilities, because you realize that that number of people is actually increasing. User experience design is always there to question the usability of something in regards to, the number of people. Like, how many people can use this thing? Because even if we are there to tailor solutions to people, you realize that we also need to account for the disabled. You need to account for people who do not have hands. If at all you are designing a website, you have to account for people who do not, who cannot actually type and use maybe their voice. And then there are people who cannot see but can actually type and scroll. So you also need to account for those people. How do they use the web? You need to find out. You realize that, of course, there are accessibility standards that were put forward that a designer needs to actually follow, so that they can actually design something eventually that is actually good. So you realize that in the end, you need to always account for, one, people who cannot see, people who do not have ears, people who do not have hands, people who do not have legs. If I told you, you're actually building a product that needs to be sort of like fetched from the shop, you need to also think about people who cannot actually go to the shop to actually get that product. So it is better to always account for all these circumstances, because one, once you account for all the circumstances, you also sort of like increase on the number of people who will actually buy a specific product or even service. So if at all your website can be used by people without hands, people who cannot see, people without ears, people without hands, legs. Just imagine that, like, the number of people who will be able to use your website. There are so many, because you'll be accounting for quite a very, huge sort of like number of people. And you realize that during user experience research, user research, people usually segment like the target users in terms of like the geographical area, and realize that if at all you target a specific geographical area, there will be disabled people, and you cannot resist that, and you cannot just eliminate them, and you're like, I will not produce for these people, because once a competitor comes in and they produce the same product or service and account for the disabled too, then that means they're going to outcompete you that specific night. They don't have a specific product. So you can imagine And we are living in a very competitive world, and that is why user experience is now key to businesses that are either expanding or even care about what people actually feel while using their products. So you can imagine, the magnitude that this word has in regards to sort of like analyzing, what user experience design is all about. So this word is there to remind you that user experience is there to serve a wide range of people. And if at all you think about it, if at all someone who is disabled uses your product, how will they feel? They will feel very good. And that is where user experience comes in. When someone is able to actually use what what you're actually trying to build in terms of design, programming, selling, user experience is always there. And you realize that some companies have this department called the quality assurance department. What do you think that quality assurance department is is all about? It's all about to sort of like question the type of quality this the type of quality that products have that are leaving maybe the specific company or even the services this company is producing. What type of services and how are people feeling? That is where the word feels comes in, and you realize that for companies that produce only services, this is where the word feels comes in, because you will ask someone after they've used your service, how have you felt? And then you'll actually analyze, and then you refine your product, depending on the results. So that is what that word was all about. So moving on, I just want to actually take you through our sort of like the article that you might have missed, and then I'm going to take you through the UX tunes, and then I'm going to take you through the UX book of the week, and then the questions will actually come in, and then shall I call it a day. So this is that we actually missed, and you should always actually look out under the UX Chefs page on LinkedIn. We are always posting these articles every week. We have a new article coming in. So you can imagine, the conflict here, the fitting and feelings conflict. So this conflict, let's just actually go through it. So under this specific article, we wrote something about fitting and feelings. So we realized that here we were suggesting and we're actually going through the reason as to why design that doesn't fit fails. So, and we're giving a case study of an infected tooth. So here in this article, I'm going to show you how someone's feelings or failing to fit a product into someone's life can bring weird feelings onto them. And this is actually a case study of an infected tooth that I had. So I once had an infected tooth that actually required fixing, because when you get an infected tooth, it usually gets a hole, and it requires to be fitted or to be fitted with a crown so that it can be functional again. So what happened is I actually went in, and then I was diagnosed, and then they told me you had an infected tooth. We either remove it or we treat it and then put for a crown. So what happened is I accepted, and then they inserted a tooth after maybe infecting the tooth. Sorry, they inserted the crown after disinfecting the tooth for a couple of days. And then what happened is, as I was actually leaving the sort of like the hospital, the doctor told me that Rogers, like, do not expect to get a weird feeling while using this crown. You get, like, someone provides for you a service or a product, and then they tell you that, Rogers, like, do not like get this weird feeling while using this product. It is normal. So what happened is, ever since then, I've lived with this feeling of I have a crown like in my mouth, and whenever I'm eating, like, I always get reminded of what the doctor told me, and then this crown, again reminds me that it's not my real tooth, and then I always get this weird feeling. So, like, this shows you that whoever like designed these crowns, or whoever designs the crowns for a tooth, does not account for how people actually feel like eventually, because realize that a normal tooth has like let me just zoom in here. You realize that a normal tooth has like a rough surface at the top to help you grind like food easily, especially meat and that tough food. So this rough surface here helps you to sort of like grind that food. So, but realize that once a tooth is infected, and then they insert a crown, like what happens is like the top of the crown is not as rough as this top area of an original tooth, and realize that once you're using this crowned tooth, it feels weird. Like the food is already sliding away from the tooth and it just goes back into your gums. And also, there's that weird feeling. And it is brought all about by the designers of the crown. They did not account for this specific rough surface. I don't know if there are better crowns out there, but I'm sure I think I got something that is really, that is affordable. Okay, that isn't that cheap or even that expensive, but I'm sure it gave me a taste, to the kind of things people do, and then they fail to fit into our lives, so that we can actually use them without any problem. Because design is there to fit into our lives. It is not there to actually. We are not there to fit into its lives. If at all, I'm being clear with you. Like whoever is building something needs to fit it into our lives. Not to think that we humans need to fit into what they are trying to build. That is why things fail, literally. You ever look at a thing that has failed anywhere, a system, something that has been started up and failed, and that requires quite a large number of people to actually, buy into it so that they can use it. It fails because it failed to find a way to fit into people's lives. So once you fail to fit something into someone's life, they will feel bad. They will leave. They will get nightmares. They will think about how bad your company is, and they will tell other people that do not ever go back to that hospital or maybe that clinic. Just go to another hospital so that you can get a better crown. So you can see. It's always better to actually fit to fit products into people's lives, not the other way around. So that is what user experience is all about. It's all about fitting things into people's lives, and then fitting things into people's lives requires questioning: what does this individual want? What is their problem? What did they do before coming here? What did they think? Why did they come here? Why do they want my product even? Like you need to question yourself, and then once you get to the real reason as to why you're actually providing something, then you can be able to fit it into someone's life. So that is what user experience is all about. Up next, I'm going to be taking you through our UX tones. Just like I told you, our UX tones, it's just a collection of conversations that we think go, unnoticed and talked about. And I know even developers have like conversations that they are always having that usually go without being noticed or without being talked about. So as a designer, I thought about it. Like there's so much to talk about. There's so many conversations, and these conversations usually have valuable information. Depending on someone, consuming the conversations. But at UX Tunes, we make sure that we give you conversations that are going to help you to be better at what you're doing. So that is why UX Tunes is there. And John is our main character. And John is like sort of like a mid senior product designer. And then we do have other characters, just like I'll be showing you. But just because most of you missed our previous workshops, and I want to give you links so that you can go check out those workshops. We introduced the UX tones and then introduced our first episode, and right about now, in our third workshop, we are starting with episode 9. So for episode 9, I think let me just fit this to screen. No, let me just fit. Yeah, let me just fit to it. So, so let me just find out zooming this in. Let me just fit it. So for episode 9, you realize that usually, we usually sort of like produce like 2 screens, like um, we usually give out 2 screens like for free under the UX chiefs. So usually the last 2 screens are usually paid for. They're about $2. So, but in our weekly workshop, we usually present you the screens and we show them to you without even paying a dime. So we are going to be taking you through this specific episode 9. So episode 9 was all about trying to figure out what to do. You realize that usually once you get to a website that is poorly designed, you sort of like start without even noticing that it is poorly designed. When you land onto any website, the first thing that actually clicks into your mind is, I want to do this. Because trust me, unless you just like wasting your time, you can never go to a specific website and then you just scroll around. No, unless maybe that's like social media. But even social media, like people usually go to sort of like follow up on like the daily news or maybe the issues that have been happening like throughout that day. You realize there is always intent as to why people go to the web or even use the internet. So in this case, John wants to sort of like pay for their medical insurance, but then they land on this website that is designed this way, like in a haphazard way, as most websites are designed today. Even if there is user experience and as the user experience field exists today, to question poorly designed user experience. Poorly designed user experiences. Most people do not actually care about it. They sort of like underlook it, and they feel like it's for corporations that have grown and have the money to sort of like invest into user experience design. But user experience design is not as that expensive as most people actually exaggerate it. So in this instance, John lands onto this website, and they tell themselves that they want to pay for medical insurance. So what happens is John starts looking around, and they ask themselves, "Where is the pay button?" Because when you're onto any website, you want to do something, but then if it is poorly designed, you'll start clicking around. If at all it is not straightforward to you, like I want to pay this. If it is at all, if at all it is a medical insurance company, the pay button or maybe renew insurance or maybe do this, that button should be like at the front once I log in or maybe once I want to buy. The first thing on your website, buy insurance. But once it's not there, someone actually starts clicking like through all the links. They start panicking. Like, where is the pay button? Like, where is this action? Where is this click? It's called it's called a call to action button. So people are always looking for those call to action buttons once they land onto your website or your product. It doesn't matter what you're doing. People always want straightforward things. Why? Because they don't have time. No one has time. Even if some of you might claim that some people have quite a lot of time, you realize that on average, no one has time. Even if someone has time, they want to actually, take off some time and then use that time to do other things. No one wants to waste their time. So John looks for the button, and then after even failing to look for the button, he asks himself, like, where am I? Like, most websites are really poorly designed. They don't even have like a navigation. And realize that once you start reading about usability, and our next workshops will be about usability testing, and all those things that fall under user experience design. You realize that navigation is key to making a usable sort of like product online. You have to show someone where they are, because just imagine someone throws you somewhere where you don't know. Like they just grab you and they throw you somewhere in a forest where you don't know. How will you feel? You feel so lost. This is what happens when someone lands onto a website without a proper navigation. They feel so lost. They start asking themselves, where am I? And then what happens is, since they are on the internet and they're not in the forest, they run away. And when someone runs away, it's very hard to get back that person. So that is what happens. So in episode 9, we were sort of like trying to show you that first and foremost, you need very good call to action buttons on your website. And then, most importantly, even if you don't have a call to action, you need a navigation, because this navigation might take the user to that call to action button, and then they actually finish up with what they want to do on your specific website. So that is what this was all about. And let's just just head to episode 10. Just like I told you, we usually produce 3 episodes. I think I think I didn't have to take you through episodes. I think I didn't take you episode. I think I didn't take you through episode 8, but nonetheless, I'm going to take you through episode 8 after I've taken you through episode 10. So no worries. So what happens is under episode 10, as you can see, episode 10 was all about making sure that you design things that people relate to. For example, there is this issue with input fields. Most of you have seen Google's input fields. Although Google is the leading, okay, I won't call it the leading, but of course it's a leading company in terms of designing online. So they have the most used design system, and of course that actually makes it the best company with the best designed products. Their M3 Material UI design system is by far the best, I might say, but it has some problems. Just problems are everywhere anyway. But their input fields do not have the labels above. They don't have the labels above the what? The input field, just like you can see in this image here, or even this one here, right here. You can see that it has a label, but Google doesn't put the label on top of the input field. It puts it within the input field, and then once you click inside, the label shifts. It goes up. So we realize that that is really a poor user experience, because why would you do that? If I told someone wants to do something, why would you have to first of all take them around? And then, to make matters worse, most people that use these input fields even forget to add the label above, and they remove it. And when someone is typing, they forget where they are, what they're doing, or the kind of input field they're trying to interact with. So you realize that these simple things like input boxes, having their labels within the input box itself, those elements actually cause a poor user experience overall. Because when someone is lost and they're trying to actually interact with a form, because remember, like, the web is full of forms, there's no how you can actually make a website or a system without forms. How will you be collecting that information, or how will you be collecting the inputs? Unless maybe you implement maybe speech to text and all of that. But still, you realize that even speech to text is not that accurate 100%. It's not that, unless it's a machine that is talking. But we humans make mistakes. So you realize that you need to edit, and you need an input field to edit. So you need to make sure that the input fields are having their labels on top. So here, this workmate of John asks John if at all they had changed the input field, because usually once designers are actually doing their work, they change things around depending on the kind of knowledge they've actually got. So in this instance, in this episode, John maybe finds out that these input fields are actually better. Input fields with their labels above the input field itself are actually better. So they change the input fields of the entire website or maybe their system that they're actually working on. So you realize that the colleague was asking if I told John had actually changed these input fields, and John actually accepted, and then he explains that so these are the input fields as actually talking about that have the the label within the input field, and it's not really good. So John tells the colleague that these input fields were actually confusing during testing because you realize that even some people are used to the label being above the input field. So these ones are always confusing and always avoid them. So as you can see, when someone's actually typing, the input field disappears. Sorry, the label, it disappears as you can see. So what happens is John just goes ahead and tells the colleague that like these input fields, they had no labels and the placeholders disappeared every time someone was typing. So that is what happens essentially. So make sure that you always have your input fields up there above the input fields. Your text fields, text input fields or any input field. It should have the label up there, and the label shouldn't start dancing around it. People think that that is really good to trick around someone, but that shifting of the label can actually annoy someone and they leave. So we would want you to be straightforward. And as you can see in the new implementation, John's colleague finally accepts that the label sticks as they are typing. So that is what this specific episode was all about. Episode 10 was all about making sure that you produce or construct or design or engineer input fields that have their labels above them, be it a text field, be it a number input, be it checkboxes, radio buttons. There's so many types of input fields. So moving on, let me just take you through our episode 8, because I said it from episode 9 as opposed to start from episode 8. So our episode 8, I think let me just play it here for no worries. So John this time round is at home. Just like I told you, UX students, like the conversations are everywhere. You can literally talk everywhere you are. Like you can talk to yourself. So you realize in this specific episode, this was actually before we started disjoining them, because we realized that they're not that readable once they're like this. Of course, here I'm actually you're viewing it on a wider screen, but once you post it like on a LinkedIn, then it's shrinked and then it's not readable a bit. So that's why we eventually opted in for the previous view I've actually showed you. So in this episode, John was actually trying to sort of like talk to Siri. I don't know if you guys have actually talked to Siri, but I'm sure you have if you have an iPhone. So there's this ideology that these machines will eventually be able to actually help us. But the only way these machines will help us if at all they actually understand us as human beings. Because as a human being, you can never be a machine. You always make mistakes here and there that are human. For example, in this instance, John is trying to actually contact Siri to sort of like ask Siri, what time is his meeting, because I'm sure you can actually connect Siri to your sort of like calendar, and then it can tell you what's up like on a specific day. So while John was actually talking to Siri, or maybe any other AI or a machine that people use to actually interact with their sort of like apps or anything on their phone. Usually, the people who sort of like come up with these models do not usually account for the circumstances that might happen when someone is actually interacting with this specific machine. Now, taking you back, I was actually reading something about like the history of how like the Siri, Alexa, like how those sort of like machines came up, like how they were trained to sort of like start, helping people with their daily tasks. So what happened is these specific machines were inspired from a movie. So what happened was that a company that was the pioneer, because usually we look at like these machines for these top big tech companies, and then we think that they're the owners of these ideas, like originally. But you realize if at all you read about like tech history, like innovations, all the way from like the World War, Great Depression, like how tech has been evolving. You realize that these big players just came in and then just joined things around. But initially, these AIs like were meant to be constructed around the personal assistant ideology. Because if you realize Alexa, Siri, all of these sort of like all of these models try to help you with something. You might ask Siri, what time is it? Who is the best musician? Who is this? What is this? Like they're trying to do the work of a personal assistant. So in this movie, they act and they sort of like create a machine that was sort of like understanding. Back then, sort of like understanding to this specific person that was in the movie. So the movie was all about an AI that was able to assist someone with their daily tasks. But then in the movie, they showed that it could even understand that this individual is not okay. You get it would it would actually tell him maybe today you shouldn't do this. Maybe today you should do this. You get whenever he made a mistake, it would tell him. So this guy would even like feel so ashamed to maybe do certain things because like their personal system was actually aware of them. Like they knew them to the core. Not like in a really bad manner of how a machine can actually get to know you and maybe do something to you, but in a way that is really productive and to help you maybe overcome certain challenges in your life. So the machine was sort of like tailored to a personal assistant sort of like way of how they should actually help you, because a personal assistant is someone that knows you because they are a real person and they might even sense how you feel. So once that was done, the movie inspired so many companies. They made so many personal assistants, and then the series came in, the Alexas, together with other models that actually help people, accomplish their daily tasks like ordering for things, scheduling meetings, all those things. So what happens is they pick that inspiration from a personal assistant, and these companies have actually failed to, make sure that they tailor these models to human beings. So that is what this episode was all about. I'm quite sure most people actually misinterpret these these UX tones, but eventually maybe the message will be, it will come out a little bit clear with more episodes that will be coming, and then with more explanations like these workshops, because I believe workshops are there to share information and knowledge here and there. So we believe that people will be able to consume this information and understand it with time. So in this episode, John is interacting with Siri, but then he like coughs, just like you can be doing something and then you cough, because we all cough, we all sneeze, and then he like continues with the request. So what Siri will tell you is, sorry, I didn't quite get that. Like I didn't quite get that. So Siri in this instance is not really tailored to this specific person. Like for them, they just made a model to just collect information from all their products, depending on who is using them, and then they just give you that information. So what is required to sort of like produce and really good user experiences with these specific models is to tailor them to the people using them. For example, if I told maybe Siri was really understanding, they would know that John has coughed. And this has happened to all of us. You might be telling Siri to do something for you, and then you get distracted. And then once you come back, Siri hasn't gotten a damn thing. So it just tells you that, sorry. And like, for you to just apologize, it doesn't give you a reason as to why it's apologizing, why it's apologizing. Like, it doesn't really explain to you. It's just acting like a machine. And, in our previous article, I talked about fitting and feelings. Once you fail to fit, the feeling is always bad, and people will repel. So that is what they call a poor user experience. So although these tech giants are actually doing well in terms of selling their core products, you realize that in the nearby future, user experience is going to be questioning quite a lot of things in regards to what are people supposed to be doing and how are people feeling actually, because you realize that eventually, once someone has finished using a product, it is not that they will just go on and like tell lies about your product to someone else. They will tell them the truth, because you realize that like people do not usually want to be misguided first and foremost. If I told you misguide someone, because misguiding is also sort of like failing to fit something into someone's life. So once you fail to fit something into someone's life, that means you're misguiding them. You're telling them to do the wrong thing. That is why, if at all you read about the history, like if at all you've read like the history of like the world wars, like World War One, World War Two, realize that those were like the real machine ages when the machine was being refined to serve the human being. But then you realize that I think it was World War One when the fighter jets. I like using this example when the fighter jets were actually causing problems. When I think it was the USF, fighting with some other country, but you realize that their fighter jets were failing because the people who are actually building them failed to fit them within the people who are meant to use them. So, for example, but told someone was actually supposed to maybe to like take off, someone like you find out that the jet was actually doing something else. In a very popular instance that was actually even written about, there was a pilot who failed to land because of the gear and because of maybe miscommunication. But eventually, when they diagnosed the accident, they said it was all about failing to sort of like interact with the gears of the fighter jet. So instead of landing, he was instead taking off. Imagine. So instead of like maybe using a gear lever to put down the what? The jet, or maybe creating a different gear lever to put down the jet and then to sort of like bring it up, it was the same gear lever. And once someone starts panicking, they start, using all the controls. Eventually, they realize that, machines have to be fit into people's lives. Like they have to fit into people's lives. And then that's when they started like, building better controls. And other machines started like sort of like improving. But realized that there were so many people that were sacrificed because of that. Our book of the week, away from the UX tunes, our book of the week is called User Experience Team of One. Let's get experience. User experience design. I just want to search for the book here so that you can have a proper user experience team of one. User experience team of one, so you can have like a proper sort of like view. Because I feel like that the view I used isn't very. So there's this lady that wrote this book, but realized that it's a really good book for user experience designers, especially um, especially people who like design solely. Because I realized startups usually have like one designer that does quite a number of things: user research, UI design, together with testing the product and doing all those other things. So I'm not actually promoting this book. I'm trying to get a proper image we can use that we can display this one, sort of like whatever I did. Make it loading. So you realize that this is a very popular book. If at all you want to think UX, it's called The User Experience Team of One by this lady called Lee Bully Wabali. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce some names. But she wrote this book, and I've read it before. It will eventually show you that the number one important question that you always have to question yourself while designing is why. Why are you doing something? Why are you doing that? Like, if I told you aiming to be a very good user experience designer, you always need to ask yourself, why? Why? Why is the only question that you need to ask yourself. Because the why will give you the how, it will give you the where, it will give you all the answers. Because once you figure out the main reason that's why you're doing something, then it will motivate you to actually, find out how, where, and all of those other questions. So I encourage you to actually read this book. It's a very interesting book. You can find ways of getting it, and then you can actually read it, and then you will actually become a very, very good user experience designer. So, guys, that was it. Our UX Chefs weekly buffet. That's what we managed to prepare for this week. And I hope you've actually enjoyed it. I can now welcome questions. Steven. Enos.
Uh, yes, we do not have questions, but it was a very good buffet. It was very nice. I liked the training, how you explain a very huge concept from like a very first slide, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from this. Yeah, thank you. But I don't have any questions yet.
All right, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for that appreciation. Steven, are you there? Steven, I think Steven is not on. Let's just give him some few minutes. So did you? Give me a minute. All right, I can see. I can see. I can see. So what I want to be doing is, she'll be receiving a recording for this UX chefs with the workshop together with video together with audio. So just sort of like be aware of that you will have this. You'll be the first person to get this information, and then you always refer to it. So maybe just to remind you that you need to stay connected, and you can join the UX design community. I'm sure you've actually you're a part of it right now because I was just checking whether I added you. You can talk to an expert. You can request for a service in regards to UI design, UX design, combination of the two, usability testing, user research, together with other work that has to do with user experience design. So that is it. I hope you actually attend the next workshop, and then we shall always get to share information here and there. So thank you so much, Eunice, for coming through. Stephen, are you there? I think Stephen is not there. I think Eunice, thank you so much. I think I'll be sharing a link to the recording in the WhatsApp group, and then you always follow up. You can always ask questions in the group. Any question that comes in, out of curiosity, anything that has to do with design, I'm always eager to share and learn from others.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you. The thanks goes more to you because this was very helpful information. I actually picked up a lot.
All right.
I'm also, as I told you before, I'm also just starting out on like a front end journey.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of should I say creation blocks when you're trying to think about how, for example, if they tell you to design a website, how the user flow, like, and you talked about a thing of call to action. In fact, I wanted to even make a request if it's possible, but if it's if it's not, I can understand. I've just recently worked on a website, an NGO website.
Yes.
Maybe I could share with you the link and you go through it and you let me know. But when you talked about when you were talking about the call to actions and getting lost, it made me think about it and trying to think about where did I go wrong, where did I go right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe if I could also share it with you if it's possible and you give me some more feedback. But otherwise, I've enjoyed this session. Looking forward to getting more from you guys.
All right. You can actually share the link with me on WhatsApp. I think you'll be getting my number there in the group.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you next week. All right. Steven, I think Steven is not there. You'll just get a recording.
He went on a long break.
Yeah, he went on a long break. All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Cheers.
Bye.